Part of being constantly booked and being profitable is one, providing great service. And our reviews, our key metric is responsiveness. When they're having an issue, making them feel heard by responding in like 2 to 5 minutes, right? Hi, I'm Donalta, and today I'm on Wealthbusters with Cody and Nada, and I will be talking about how to use Airbnb for financial freedom and to transform your life.
We're going to go straight into the meats on the bones. Tell us about your portfolio in the Airbnb business. What does that look like right now?
Yeah, so we have about 40 units internationally.
Wow.
In Canada and the US. We are in Ontario, so Toronto, Mississauga, Windsor, Cleveland, Atlanta, as well as Mexico, Tulum, Mexico, and Dominican Republic.
That's amazing. So how are you? So this is just a amateur question for myself, but like, how did you find getting into the market in Mexico? Because I know with that, it's a little difficult sometimes for people to actually get like housing and stuff. I feel like that's like level veteran of, acquiring property.
Actually, Mexico is pretty easy to get into. There's, especially Tulum, in the past few years, there's been a lot of development and a lot of building.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of builders with property available that are willing to rent the properties out for Airbnb.
Wow.
So it's pretty easy to get into. You just need to know the right people, talk to a local realtor, and get connected. And a lot of the builders are willing to give you multiple units as long as they are getting their rents paid.
Did you find that getting those connections was difficult? Because I've seen we've all seen like those articles where people try to invest internationally and, maybe they talk to someone who's not what, they're speaking to. They'll be like, I'm a builder in Mexico, and they send money. It's like, oh, person disappeared off the face of the earth. So like, what would you kind of advise for people if they're considering that type of route?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I do know a lot of people who have gotten scammed.
Yeah.
But it's about kind of doing your due diligence, connecting with local people, understanding the reputation of those people. If you're talking to a realtor, do other people know that realtor?
Yeah.
Getting referrals from other people other than them. The communities are also generally pretty small. So if you talk to a few people and you ask about the person you're thinking about working with,
Yeah.
they'll usually be pretty upfront about if they know that person as well. And that will give you some insight. But it is really important that you find people you can trust, get a referral, somebody who has worked with them in the past. Because, there are a lot of scams where people are saying, hey, you'll get this thing. You send a bunch of money and nothing happens. Protect yourself and definitely be careful. But I think the best way is a referral and then vetting that person. Not if they're saying they're with a particular realty or business, connect with that business. The thing about Mexico too is to be involved in real estate, you don't necessarily have to be licensed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's really about that individual's reputation and kind of digging into that.
Yeah.
Because they won't necessarily always have a license to show you. So just understanding who they work with, other people who know them, and getting it from sources other than themselves. There's a lot of self-promotion.
Yeah.
So watch out for self-promotion.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
I think that's the same as Belize. I've bought properties of Belize, sold it. Like none of the broker there has a license. They just join this broker, they can start selling. Right.
100%. And Tulum is a phenomenal place. I'm not just saying that because it's my honeymoon spot. It's gorgeous. I love that place. And the amount of tourism has boomed. Like every time I've gone, it's just the amount of people there is crazy. Like it's like an Instagram place. So
Absolutely.
People flock there. But
Absolutely. And there's beautiful properties from luxury to, hostels. It's good for all of the different kind of avatars
100%.
and consumer types that would be traveling.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's like the digital nomad or the family vacation, the wedding destination,
100%.
bachelorette and bachelor parties. It's got it all.
Yeah. And Tulum is that place where like you are going off the resort, for other places, you want to be a little hesitant if you don't know the local area. But with Tulum, you go to that one strip and it's beautiful. Like you get to see everything. So I'm actually glad you talked about this because I've been itching to get into that market. So I'm going to connect with you for sure after this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not really a beach town or beach destination. It's more jungle. There is a hotel zone, but it's not the same like all-inclusive vibe that you get at other places. There's not any all-inclusive hotels, but it's really a place where you'll have to connect with like local people, eat
Yeah.
local food, go to local restaurants, and the quality of the food, the fine dining is amazing.
I still miss it to this day. Like I'm like getting nostalgic right now just thinking of their mangoes.
Yeah. So I know we're coming back to the same question is over the last 2 years, a lot of people said Airbnb were riding on the COVID, coming out of COVID was a big boom, and a lot of people are talking about Airbnb's not making as much money. So what is your portfolio? Like, I know you have stuff in Toronto, Mississauga, Cleveland, Atlanta, Tulum, right? So how do they all perform? Right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yes, there are talks of the Airbnb bust. So basically oversaturation, market saturation, which will lead to less demand, a lot of competition. I think the key difference is, at least for me, is the fact that we treat it like a business. Not only are we real estate investors, but we're hospitality experts, and it's all about the guest and the guest experience. So part of being constantly booked and being profitable is one, providing great service.
Yeah.
One of our in our reviews, our key metric is responsiveness. So it's just a matter of, especially with everything being remote and, people communicating off an app, when they're having an issue, making them feel heard by responding in like 2 to 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's locked out of their unit or they're arriving late and they're not sure where to go, the worst thing is to have to wait 45 minutes for your host to respond.
Yeah.
So we are very big on responsiveness, having that 24-hour support, so that if somebody does have an issue, even if we can't answer it right away, we can definitely make them feel better by saying, hey, we've heard you and we are going to look into that. Just give us a few minutes and we'll take care of it. So I think that's one of the key things. Also is being competitive on your pricing. So understanding the dynamics of pricing, who the competition is. Depending on where you're located in the Airbnb space, your direct competitors are hotels. So it's not good enough to just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
You kind of have to employ the same strategies that hotels use in their pricing in order to be competitive.
Yeah.
So that's constantly looking at and adjusting your nightly rates based on demand. Lowering your rates if you're in slow season or if you have unbooked nights. The key thing about rooms and Airbnb is that once a night passes, you don't have it booked, you can't resell it, right? So your goal is always to be able to sell that night. And I think some hosts just need to be a little bit more flexible on their pricing. Also, too, there's a lot that Airbnb hosts can learn from hotels, such as, cancellations, being flexible with people when they can't necessarily make it. We have a strict cancellation policy where if you cancel, we're not required to give you a refund. However, we do anyway, because that guest will most likely book with us again if they're coming to the town or if they're looking to go somewhere else. So look at our units because they had a positive experience. I think like sometimes that's one of the key ways to turn people off of Airbnb is just not being flexible and just not attending to their needs. Also, a lot of things that hotels doing, being competitive with your cleaning fees, understanding that a lot of the things that count as expenses are part of the cost of doing business
100%.
and operating your business like a hospitality business, similar to the way hotels do it, in order to maintain competitiveness and keep your bookings coming in and stay profitable. But absolutely, things in the market have changed. It's not enough these days to set it and forget it because people are moving around. There's no longer the need for staycations, right? Which is one of the main reasons that locally Airbnb was able to blow up during the pandemic. People couldn't leave the country. People couldn't go anywhere. So they were looking within their local markets for things to do. Now that things are opening up, the avatar of the guest is changing. People are traveling again. Business travel has returned. So what does that business person who's coming to town want? What does the family who's traveling to a destination actually want? And then providing that level of service to differentiate from your hotel. Especially too, because Airbnbs are great for people who, Airbnbs are great for people who are traveling with families or are going to be staying a while. Things like having access to a laundry or having access to a kitchen. if you're traveling with children. It's a key differentiator against hotels and why somebody would choose an Airbnb. So really understanding your product and understanding your guest and who you're attracting is key to staying competitive.
100%. I love that because you touched on a lot of really important things. Like the way that you're viewing your bookings is a lot of people view it as a business, but you kind of take it like the old school business where the customer is the bread and butter of that, you know, like that's the main priority. So it's like making sure that you're matching the level of service at a hotel. Cause you know, I call the bellhop or I call the front desk and I'm like, hey, I need toothpaste. They're running up the stairs to get that to me. But sometimes you see these horror stories of like someone being locked out for half an hour, 45 minutes. And they're just like, this is a horrible experience. And I don't know if you've seen those as well, where people are getting cleaning fees for no reason, where it's like $500+ and the general sentiment now with Airbnb is a lot of people are nervous to go there because all they just see is dollar signs. Everything is going to cost money. Have you ever had one of those situations, like for yourself in the way that you run your Airbnbs? I've seen a lot of people have cleaning lists that are huge. Do you also kind of have something similar where it's kind of like just take care of the property, or is it like you take it old school where it's like, hey, I'll take care of it. This is my business. I run it. Enjoy your stay. And yeah, don't worry about it.
So no, we have lots of rules.
I love that.
We have lots of rules because it's a matter of working with the platform provider, Airbnb. Yeah. And that is because the way Airbnb works, if you don't have it written and documented for the guests to see, then you have no potential recourse should anything go wrong. So yeah, we are very adamant about having our rules documented, but it's more so a CYA in case something happens. But yeah, if somebody doesn't, take out the trash, we won't ding them a cleaning fee. But there are horror stories with guests who will leave tons and tons of garbage. And, people sometimes guests will ask me, oh, this is ridiculous. Why do I have to take out the garbage? I'm like, hey, if you can't make it to the garbage chute, no problem. Yeah. No worries. Our cleaner will take care of it. But if you have excess, please, we'd like some assistance. Like just things like that. But yeah, we do have a lot of rules, and it's more so about working within the rules of Airbnb themselves and how their management and operation processes work. But our first and foremost is the guest experience, because we are nothing without our guests. If they don't book, if they don't repeat, if they don't return, then we don't have a business.
100%.
So yeah,
it seems like yours are like pretty normal confines of like just take care of the space. Because like for myself, like when I go to a hotel, I always clean up everything. Like I'm a little too extra. I'll make sure the bed is made, even though I know they're gonna do it in the laundry, and I make sure everything is proper. But yeah, like I've seen some stories where someone was like, oh, you have to clean the entire bathroom, like clean the showers and scrub it down, and I'm just like, that's wild. I'm paying for a chore? Like that's crazy. I can't even do that at my house. Like what are you talking about? Yeah. But no, it seems like just take care of the space, have respect for it. And I think that includes the longevity of your business too. You want to take care of the asset. So
yeah, absolutely. It is all about taking care of the space. Yeah. But there also are bad guests. Oh, right. Yeah. And it's really, like I said, just that protection against should something go wrong and they absolutely trashed our place. We have this document that says, hey, they were expected to do these things and they were aware, and we have some level of recourse. Because one of the key differences too with Airbnb and a hotel is that a hotel has your ID and your credit card, and they don't have to ask you if there's damages to repay. If you take like a water glass out of the hotel, you're getting that $10 charge on your card.
$10. It's going to be like $100. That thing was Tiffany apparently.
Yeah. So, how long have you been doing this Airbnb arbitrage thing, or start in the Airbnb?
So I've been doing Airbnb for about 5 years. I started arbitrage about a year and a half ago. And it was really around the change in the Canadian economy with the rising interest rates. We decided to look at our portfolio and see like where can our money go further and how can our money go further. So with that, we were able to take a much smaller investment and get 10 units, rental units in the US. And that is how we started our arbitrage business.
Yeah.
So it sounds like kind of what you own in Canada, like Airbnb in Canada is what you own, but all the arbitrage are in US or Mexico.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Would you do Airbnb arbitrage in Canada?
Absolutely. I definitely would do Airbnb Airbnb arbitrage in Canada. I think there's definitely a space for it. It's a matter of finding the right landlord in the right place at the right time. I think that it's challenging to find a profitable arbitrage unit if it's on a recent purchase, just given the price of real estate and the interest rate. However, if there's a landlord with a more mature portfolio that they've had for a while, maybe some of their costs are down, and you know you can get a property for a reasonable rate, which they still exist, right? It's really about finding and meeting that right person with the right connection, and especially too with the cost of property and the interest rate. It's much easier to get into the business with an arbitrage unit versus having to buy, right? It's just much more economical and will allow you to scale even within Canada. So even looking at the cost of, let's say, a condo in downtown Toronto, you know, now they're renting for like $3,000. If you were able to get a condo around that price point, there's still about, you know, we're seeing numbers about like $9,000 to $10,000 that it's making on Airbnb. So the profit margins are definitely there. It's just a matter of finding that right asset at the right price and making sure the numbers work.
100%. So what kind of triggered the move towards arbitrage? Because in Canada, you kind of are doing like a different type of structure, different type of strategy. So what kind of got you into that?
Yeah, it was more so at the point where we were committed to hospitality, and this being the thing that I wanted to do. I really enjoyed the Airbnb. I enjoyed the guest experience. I enjoyed when people enjoyed the property. You know what I mean? It feels good when they're like, I had a great experience. I was comfortable. You know, they send you pictures of like them with their kids, or helping new immigrants or people moving to the country get settled and providing housing for them. And we found that was a key sort of niche, a middle market that was missing as people are immigrating to Canada. They have difficulty finding places to live. Landlords don't want to rent to them because they don't have jobs, they don't have credit, and they just need a safe, comfortable place where they can start their lives. And so it was just a matter of, you know, that commitment and wanting to do it bigger and better. So the hospitality industry is like what we're in now. So I'm going to keep doing that, branching out into hotels. And this is just kind of the space I want to be in. Before, you know, there was Airbnb, there was always corporate rentals and vacation rentals. And it has always been my vision, even before Airbnb came along, to have beautiful vacation homes around the world. And when I was a corporate consultant, I traveled a lot and, you know, stayed at different hotels and properties, and just would have loved to be able to get an Airbnb. So,
just to have laundry. Oh my goodness.
Trust me, it makes a huge difference.
100%.
So would you recommend people get into the Airbnb business because they have the same dream as you? They want to own a property or Airbnb arbitrage everywhere in the world? Is that a realistic goal to come in? Should that be a good drive?
I think Airbnb is a great solution for people who want to balance their lifestyle and their financial goals. I really think that's what it's about. At least that's what it's about for me, right? It's a matter of how I want to live and finding that mechanism that will enable the lifestyle that I want.
Yeah.
So whether you're someone who maybe just wants more time freedom, but also has the capacity to, you know, do guest services and interested in hospitality, our Airbnb arbitrage would be a great way to maybe allow you to leave your 9 to 5 so you can spend more time at home with your family or your children. If you're somebody who loves to travel, it's a way that you can enjoy the different properties that you have around the world.
For sure.
And also get an income. So I think it's really about your lifestyle and how you want to live, and how Airbnb can be used as a tool to make that happen. Because there's the profit side, and then there's also, like I said, that lifestyle piece. And for me, it's about marrying the two, whatever your goals
100%.
are, right? Whether it's to build like a corporate housing empire with like multifamily units.
Yeah. I'm definitely coming through when that empire is started, man. I'm coming through, but I have to ask this question because I'm always curious. But tell us like some horror stories. Like, what are some times that you were just like, oh my goodness, this is
pivot. I think over the 1.5 years of Airbnb arbitrage, or over the 5 years of doing Airbnb, what are the times that you hit that end or you have to pivot? And that was painful to go through it, but you have to go through it. And maybe looking back, you have a different experience. So tell us about those, right?
for sure.
Oh yeah, we're constantly pivoting. I think in this day and age in any business, you have to keep up with the times. You have to be willing to pivot and change the way you're doing things. Some key times that we've had to pivot. Just one was the ability to grow our portfolio in Canada and having to go to the U.S. And get more properties there, and even understanding that those different markets and those market demographics, who the corporate travelers are versus the insurance travelers, and then the different asset types that kind of meet that need of that individual. But yeah, we're even going through a pivot right now, just seeing in the market that changes are happening to vacation patterns due to a pending recession.
Yeah.
Right. So having a balanced portfolio.
What is that pattern before we go anywhere? Like, what's that pattern of the recession?
Yeah.
Like, what is historically has happened during a recession for traveling?
Yeah. So what is happening and what historically happens is with a recession, people will usually choose to spend less on bigger ticket items, such as fly to vacation destinations, right? Your things like your Disneyland, or maybe your trip abroad that you would have usually taken, right? So it's understanding that, we're in a time in the market where a lot of hosts could be impacted by that. Yeah. So who's that avatar type that you would go after, and having multiple exit strategies, just like any real estate investing strategy, right? Not being 100% reliant on one specific avatar, because if there's a shift, your whole business is bust.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just really about figuring out that flexibility. So for example, we're in Mexico, we're in Tulum, and our property we're originally positioning as a group destination. It can sleep up to 28 people. It's got a pool. It's really great. So it was really...
Is that the boutique hotel you're talking about?
Yes. So yeah, we're really originally focusing on, large group destinations. We've had people inquiring about weddings and different things, but looking at the travel trends and the way things are going, we're pivoting. We're pivoting towards digital nomads, right? People who are now a major player in this market space after COVID, the people who are working remotely and have location freedom, and they don't need to be tied to one place. The key thing about these folks is that traditionally, people who are moving around would have been seen as staying at hostels, but these are professionals. So they're looking for a better experience and a little bit more luxury than they would get at a hospital. But because they are moving around and digital nomads, they still want a sense of community. They want to feel connected to people. They want to meet people while they're out working and doing different things. So knowing that we're seeing changes and trends with large vacation and large groups dropping, I'm not going to keep all my eggs in that basket. 100%. I'm going to pivot my marketing strategy. I'm going to pivot my offering to cater to a new type of guest. And that means, if that means like a simple continental breakfast, or, using our grounds potentially to also, we're going to do more planting and put like banana trees, because this new type of avatar wants to make a smoothie in the morning, and they're into sustainability. And we want to offer them the ability to connect with people and have an offering that matches their lifestyle and values, which is sustainability, community,
for sure,
and being eco-friendly. So we have solar panels, and we're looking at also implementing, some water and filtration things that would be interesting to that avatar type.
And would you consider like your full 40 units holding of Airbnb, are they the luxury, or are they the best value for the bang of their buck, or are they kind of like, more of a necessity? Airbnb? That's
a really great question. So more about the pivoting as well. We've actually gotten rid of some of our luxury portfolio in Mexico.
Where though?
In Mexico. Okay. Yeah, in Mexico.
Define luxury in Mexico. I don't have an idea. What does luxury mean?
So luxury is like the whole like a 5-bedroom.
Yeah.
Like
Can you
with the
Instagram
pool,
it?
like the whole Instagrammable.
Yeah. How much per night is a luxury?
Like anywhere from $500 to $100, $500 to $1,000 a night.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've actually pivoted away from that again because we're seeing the drop in travel in with that particular space, and we are again focusing on this new avatar type. Sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, no, it's like do you almost say luxury or bang for your buck.
So and again, going into this new version of the world and economy, we are focusing more on value. We're focusing on locations and property type that have a relatively low price point but are offering a tremendous amount of value to the guests. Because one, it's going to be more profitable to us. We will get to have all that demand that would have came from the luxury space as people are looking to save more money. And that will basically increase the number of guests that are interested in us and keep our revenues high. So
100%.
yeah, we're constantly pivoting.
Yeah, it's interesting because the reason I brought up is a lot of investor in Ontario, right? They focus on the cash flow property, and most of those are not the fancy property, not the luxury one because they don't cash flow, but they're the ones that newcomers will buy, if people really push comes to shove needs to live. Right. And traditionally, like even Grand Car don't focus on those property because even a recession hit, those ones are the one that the price don't change as much. The rent continue to go up because more people want those.
Exactly.
100%.
Is that the same in Airbnb? Is that the mentality you're going in?
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. Right. It's about making sure that we're still profitable and we want to serve as many people as possible. So that is the asset type we're now focusing on versus the luxury. And yeah, we're going to constantly pivot. And when things change again and people are ready to travel, we'll get back into that other asset class. And that's the beauty of arbitrage, right? It gives you the flexibility to exit a unit, exit a market.
How flexible is it? I mean, most people have this question is that, okay, you sign a master lease or something. You sign it for a year. You ask for 1 to 2 months free rent. But if something doesn't work out,
That's
right?
the
You're
thing.
smiling.
That's the
What
thing.
At
happened?
the end of the day,
What happened?
every landlord wants the rent to be paid.
Yeah.
So if you go
But
to
it doesn't work for you. What if you're like, oh man, something shift. We need to pivot.
Yeah.
Landlords said, no, I'm holding you accountable to this. So how do you pivot then?
Yeah. So for the most part, I've never experienced that. Basically, when we have to shift, they have their deposit and their security deposit or 1 month's rent. And that's, I guess, their reward for us not honoring the full extent of the
So
lease.
you can cut it right away.
Yeah, they're usually like, they completely understand. Maybe they're not happy about it, but it's better than having a deadbeat tenant who can't pay the rent.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't want that to be our reputation either. We'd prefer to have a good relationship with the landlord and just say like, it's not working. Give them the appropriate amount of notice and let them know that we will be exiting. And we're complete. And the thing is though, what's also great for them is the units are beautiful. They're staged, they're clean. So they're able to leverage our furnishings, our photos.
Did you
and
take
have
away the
people-
furnishing or do you leave it?
No, sometimes the units come furnished. If we furnish it, they can leverage that for their walkthroughs and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll usually just take the furniture if we bought it and put it somewhere else. We can also negotiate with the landlord if they want to keep it for their next tenant. There's also the option to potentially
Sell it to them kind of thing. at a
or sell
discount.
it to another Airbnb investor, right? Maybe there's another investor who's still working in that luxury space and they would want the different things that we have. So it's, not a complete loss.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know nowadays there's a lot of mixed reviews with people towards Airbnbs. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that article where there was a guy who was a mansion, had an illegal unit, and the woman in there is like living there for a year. So I've been seeing a lot of stuff, like even on Reddit, where people are really hesitant even entering Airbnb, let alone arbitrage. I'm going to go back to this question, but like, what are some things that maybe you didn't have go according to plan, but you stuck with it anyways because you saw the vision?
Yeah. I don't think anything went according to plan. But I think it's just a matter of, the little successes and then learning from the things that didn't work. And also, again, being quick to pivot. When something is not working, we give it a runway. Like,
How do you know when to pivot? how long
Yeah.
would you give? What if it's a low season and you're going right into a low season? You're like, stick it out, but we're losing money, right? How do you know when to pivot?
So you kind of we plan our seasons, right? We know you kind of like look, or when you're doing your analysis and picking a property, you know the high season and the low season.
Yeah.
We'll usually start up during low season so that we are ready to get that high season revenue.
I'm on the same
right?
page for
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah. So in that sense, we already know there's a bit of a carrying cost at that point, right? Like we're gonna if it's low, we don't have reviews. It's gonna take a while to ramp up,
For sure.
and those different things. So it's planned, and you know you're gonna need a certain amount to hold you over, and then you're just gonna get to a point where you're going to make a certain amount. And I think that's the key thing. It's actually having a plan. I think a lot of people go into it without a plan. They haven't done the research. They don't know if Airbnb is allowed in their area, or not even Airbnb. Again, Airbnb is a platform. They don't know if short-term rentals under 28 days are allowed in the area. If it is, what is required for them to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's as simple as having a license, and registering in a business, paying your taxes, and I think that's really it. They haven't looked at the numbers. They don't understand the market. And I think that's the key thing. It's just like any other real estate strategy, where you have to do your homework. You have to do your research, know what to expect. And things may not always, even if you do that, things may not always go as planned, but this is the purpose of having multiple exit strategies. You may decide, okay, I'm going through a rough patch right now. I'm not necessarily going to get rid of this unit, but maybe I put a midterm rental in. Maybe I even put a long-term tenant in with a furnished unit, knowing that they're coming here for a 1-year job assignment. I'm still going to get $300-$400 a month versus $1,000. So it's really knowing what your exit strategies are and what the market value rent for that property is, whether it's short-term, mid-term, or long-term.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. And what would, if let's say someone I'm coming in, I'm looking at Airbnb, building an Airbnb arbitrage business in US, what is a realistic monthly net income per unit that I'm expecting?
I think it depends on which state. You got to get a little more.
Yeah, it depends.
But you still got to have that number, right? What if it's not hitting that, then I'm not going in at all. What is that expectation?
Let's say Atlanta.
Or Cleveland.
It depends.
Yeah.
What are we
So I think as
expecting?
a rule of thumb, you generally want to be able to double the rent at a minimum, right? You're also going to have expenses. So I'd like to go in at about like 2x the rent after, and then you'll have your expenses, and that'll give you the net. I think the minimum cash flow should be $1,000. So that kind of gives you, if you're looking to make like $10,000, you want 10 units a month. Ideally, just to hedge, I would bump that up to 2,000 because some months are going to be lower, some months are going to be higher, right? So it's really about balancing that out. So I would say anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 minimum would be what you would expect per month for revenue. The higher, the better. And then I would say also to like focus on markets that aren't oversaturated. Like if you see on the news, everybody's going there.
Yeah.
What's your sweet spot right now? You say oversaturated. How do we define that? Right. The way I look at it, I listen to different podcasts as well. You're just like, they're talking about any place 1 hour drive away from the major city. Is that kind of like a sweet spot? Stay away from vacation, like.
Yeah, I think if you're specifically in the vacation market right now,
It's painful, right?
well, no, the places are doing really well. There are certain places that are doing really well. I think if you're specifically in the vacation market right now, you want to be within maybe like 2 to 3 hours max of a major city, somewhere where people can drive to that doesn't necessarily require a flight. Because people will always take like, the weekend getaways and those type of things, whether it's like like hard times or like good times. There's always those local vacation destinations that will work well. And those are even sustained during economic hard times and a recession. I think if you're in the more urban areas, it's catering to business travelers. I personally would just pivot the strategy. So for example, let's talk Texas, right? Texas has a lot of short-term rentals.
Are you in Texas as well? Are you looking at Texas?
Yeah, so that's like our next market.
Do you have a city that you're looking at? Dallas, Austin, Houston, around there?
No, we haven't picked a specific city. We're looking at secondary markets in Texas. And the reason is because one, Texas has just great laws and rules around Airbnb in general.
That's a red state, right?
Yeah. They're flexible with it. But also Texas is growing, like with all the market principles. It's got jobs. The economy is growing. People are moving to Texas. Median age, house prices are going up. It has all of the basic real estate fundamentals going with it. Additionally, it's also growing in terms of midterm rental stays. So whether it's travel nurses, they're opening up a lot of hospitals. So I think it has all of the major plays. It has short term, it has long term, and it has midterm. So that's why I talk about with the different exit strategies, right? I feel like it's a location that would easily allow you to pivot your asset, like depending on your asset type, between any three of those strategies. And if you're holding on to real estate and actually buying real estate, potentially it would be profitable long term as well. So that's why we're looking at Texas, and we would be looking at secondary markets. Again, ones that maybe not have a bit of a vacation feel, but also have some level of infrastructure around it, whether it's a major school or anything, like to attract people to that location. While other people and who are focusing specifically on short-term rentals may be exiting those markets, that will create an opportunity for us to get that traffic to us, because we're not specifically focusing on just short-term. We're looking at also the economic factors that will bring people and making sure that our properties are in appropriate proximity to them.
No, that's interesting, because there was one point like a few years ago where I was looking to like go to the States, and Texas was the place that I was looking at.
We're going there, in case you don't know. Probably after New Year. Well,
we're going?
Well, that's why I asked Texas.
It's news to me.
Well, yeah, we'll figure this part out. But yeah, that's like the secondary market in Texas, exactly where we're looking at. Like we're looking at Atlanta, North Carolina.
Yep.
Dallas is a good one too.
Like for me,
Dallas, Fort Worth on the outside.
Yeah.
My personal standpoint is I want something that's less seasonality.
Yeah. I agree with you in those
I want
markets.
more consistency. If I gonna find a place that's more seasonality, that I want my portfolio kind of balance out.
Exactly.
100%.
Kind of one is winter is high season, one summer is high season. I want them to kind of balance out.
Yeah.
But ideally, I don't want that. I guess it's human nature. It's like, for me, it's not about how much I can make. I don't care about if it's a luxury. I'm proud of what I own. We have a minimum standard to make it nice, what people want to live in. But it's, at the end of the day, is how can we be the last one standing? And
longevity.
Least amount of time to pivot, because every time you pivot, it costs time and money and energy.
Yeah.
Right? So how can we make something that's more what's that
It's
word?
less. It's more secure, less volatile. Like, for example, like if you look at Texas, the growth in population year over year, you look at the sectors that are becoming more prevalent. It's a healthy, steady growth versus if you're looking at New York or you're looking at California. Like that is a very like level veteran type situation, because the numbers are kind of everywhere at some point. Whereas Texas kind of offers you a little bit of that safety, and it is a longer term play, you know, and that's the thing, is you want like security to balance out, you know, if you are looking at New York. So you want a healthy balance of both. But
yeah, I 100% agree. It's all about a balanced portfolio, because even within those locations as well, there is a seasonality factor 100%. As to what brings people and the time that it brings people to that city or destination. So for me, I think it's important to have a balanced portfolio. So then when one season is high, the other season is low, and it's kind of balancing out. Also, too, again, I'm really big on pivoting the strategy. I know, Cody, you mentioned, you know, pivoting takes time, but some of these are quick pivots. It's just really about like changing your marketing shift over a day or two, or just knowing the time point when to change your marketing shift, right? So it's part of your business process to be able to pivot to attract another client. And then when it gets to another point in the season, you change your marketing strategy again to attract that other higher revenue type client, right? So that you're always profitable, because irrespective of the market, there's going to be changes in seasonality. And then again, there's also that demand factor. So although, yes, like places like Texas, North Carolina, they are relatively popular, a lot of people there are also struggling and getting rid of units as well too, because they're not pivoting. right? They're in these high demand places,
Yeah.
right? And everything would seem, like it should be working out, but whether their strategy is too rigid with their pricing, or they're not looking at the right guest avatar, whether they're not advertising to the right type of people or making the right connections, all of that will ultimately impact your business. It's not safe or just a good business practice to rely on Airbnb alone.
Seriously.
If Airbnb at any moment in time can decide to kick you off the platform, all it takes is one guest complaint. Literally.
Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, we get guest complaints all the time, but we know
How do you deal with
Airbnb's
that?
process. We know Airbnb's process in and out.
Yeah.
It's really about documentation, communicating in order to kind of circumvent the issue. And I think that's the key thing, is just knowing how to manage and talk to within the platform. That's why I was saying, like, we have all those rules.
Yeah.
Right. Not necessarily to encumber the guests, but should anything happen, we have that documentation that we can also use
Paper
to
trail.
communicate with Airbnb. Like, guests can say, like, oh, there was actually, I had this happen. Airbnb called because, something about cameras. I'm like, yeah, we have cameras in our common areas of our property, right? It's a multi-unit building. So for guest safety, we have cameras in the foyer, any shared common spaces, right? And so I had the conversation with Airbnb. I'm like, absolutely. But then knowing the key words and things to say to them and how they communicate to, for the Airbnb's own values, right? So saying it's about guest safety. I shared open with the documentation. Here's where the cameras are. Here's the footage. Here's what we look at, right? And versus if I wasn't able to have that conversation, they could have shut down my whole listing because the guest said there were cameras, right? And it's just really how you kind of communicate with them to protect yourself.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, it's all about making sure, if it's a game of he said, she said, that you have the paper trail. That's the most important thing. But no, I love what you were saying earlier. Like, I think if I were to just like make this like a learning curve for myself, it's basically when entering this market, it's all about adapting. That's the most important thing. If you don't adapt to the market, you become a victim to it. You succumb to it. And I think that's like the most important thing. A lot of people, when they start a strategy, like real estate and Airbnb, that's all very emotional things. It's like the pride that you have with it, that when they have a plan set in the beginning, they're not willing to consider a new one because they've looked at every factor. But it's like, you can plan as much as you want, but the market is volatile. It will come and flip everything upside down. So you need to be open enough to understand that you're going to need to pivot or else you're going to fall to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to what I was saying about like Airbnb having the ability to shut down your listing.
Yeah.
Again, if a guest complains and they choose to suspend or shut down your listing or cancel your reservations, what are you going to do with 100 units that you're relying on them solely as your bread and butter, right? You need to have the other connections and know how to get those other avatar types, those midterm, those long term, so that you can keep your business afloat. For a $400 a month of profit is better than zero if you have a huge building, and that's traditionally long term rentals. You know what I mean? And okay, so it's furnished. You're gonna make a little bit more because it's furnished, but that's how you kind of protect your asset, is just 100%. Knowing how to flex and when to flex between the different strategies. And we plan it. We absolutely plan when we're going to target a different type of avatar, so that we can maintain our profitability metrics. In low season, we're just as profitable as we are in high season. Wow. Maybe a few $1,000s less, right? But we're averaging about $40,000 a month that we're bringing in, and we always try to maintain that. It'll range between that and like 35 in
with all
low
the 40
season.
unit, right?
Yeah.
So I know it comes to about time here, but I really want to ask this question. If you were to rebuild this business again, if you don't have the 40 units, but knowing what you know right now, what are the top 3 things I'll do differently? That knowing what you already know to rebuild it again. Is that going to be capital? Is that going to be a different market? Is that going to be the way you do research, or what is that?
Yeah, it would definitely be the way I did my research. So, over the years, I've learned a lot. And there's no exchange for time. But yeah, now knowing what I know, I would have probably picked some different asset types and not have followed the crowd so much, in the sense of, the things you hear on the news, like basic things like, these are the top 5 locations for Airbnb. So I'm going to go look at it, right? Right. Do the exact opposite.
Yeah. 100%.
Opposite. Yeah.
If everyone's doing it and there's an article about it, go the
The
opposite
opposite
direction.
way, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing you will probably do differently.
Yeah, I would definitely do that differently. And I would focus more on different asset types. So again, that goes back to just understanding the avatar, and going for being more clear about the asset type, whether I was catering to families or catering to the business traveler, versus trying to, cater to everybody.
Yeah. No, 100%. So kind of like honing in on what you were looking for versus just like one size fits all approach. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's been a great chat. I wish we have more hours, but it's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was great. I had
Love
lots
this.
of fun.